So I forgot my laptop at the office, so I'm in
Oh,
my basement on my phone.
okay.
So the it's going to be moving around quite a bit because I'm not very steady,
All right, no worries.
and you'll see the insulation of our beautiful basement in the
Yep.
background.
All right. I know what that's like. Mine's getting close to done, but I'm still not done. So
Well, you better go downstairs just so
uh,
we're matching.
I'm in the basement at my place, so I
Oh,
do have
perfect.
the walls and stuff done. I just don't have the baseboards on yet.
Good.
So so that's going all right.
If you hear screaming in the background, we had some baby problems tonight, but we should be okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
if you do have to go, you just let me know. I don't want to hold you up if there's something more important coming up,
No, no,
coming your
no
way.
problem at all. Sorry to
Cool.
postpone you so many times.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So I've got the recording going already. Um, and yeah, I've done a test to make sure everything's working all right. I think it's good. I did have one situation where I messed something up in the settings and couldn't release that video because there was no audio from the person I was talking to. So this time I know it's going to work because I've tested it out. Anyway, just for the audience, anyone watching, Spencer and I met on our local chat group. We were talking about politics and stuff, and we found that we don't have a lot of similarities in our views, but we have found that any discussions we've had have been very civil. We haven't had any like taking anything too personally. We've been, I think we've been like had no animosity toward each other, and that's been positive. And I thought it might be good to have a discussion with Spencer, just about some topic that we chose, and we decided to choose morality. So anyway, I guess let's get into it. The first thing I'd like to start with, though, is getting into our religious backgrounds, because I think a lot of how morality is defined by people is based on their religion. And so, if it's okay with you, I mean, all I know about you right now is that you're Mormon, and uh, that's kind of about it. So after you give us a little more background on your own religious, where you're coming from religiously, I can give you a little bit of details on my own background if you'd like. But yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and give me more details about your religion and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised, born and raised in the LDS or Mormon faith as well, and my family's been in it basically since the beginning.
Okay.
But that being said, it's still a choice that I've made, as an adult. It's something that I've discovered to be true for myself, and it's brought me and my family happiness. And I did a Mormon. I was a Mormon missionary for 2 years. So I
Mm-hmm.
went to Halifax and Newfoundland. So a lot of people get to go somewhere exciting, learn a second language. I got to learn how to speak Newfie, and that was
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome.
So I have some Newfie clients now, and I learned
Oh
how
yeah.
to communicate with them, and so when they say how you getting on, me old trout, I know exactly what they're saying, and we're good. So
What does that translate to? Like, I
so how
don't
you
know.
getting on means how you doing,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right? And then like Carson, my old trout, how you doing? So it's just like a term of endearment or something.
Right. Cool.
So now I greet my non-Newfie friends with that too, and they
And they
think it's
just give
fun.
you a funny look most of the time.
They usually do that anyways. I don't have to speak Newfie to them, so it's okay.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Um,
So yeah, is there more to it that you'd like
no, and
to?
so I'm a strong active member in the LDS faith right now,
Right.
and volunteer in lots of positions from Cubs to the Boy Scouts, a little bit
Yeah.
older right now. Then I teach an adult Sunday school class twice a week. We're studying the Old Testament right now, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I'm involved and active in that right now. So
Cool. All right. Yeah. So I guess one thing before I get into mine, I was just wondering, do you have a preference for, like, I'm not sure. I haven't talked to a lot of Mormons. Do you prefer LDS or Mormon? Like, is it
doesn't matter. Mormon's
okay?
fine. Yeah,
It's all good. Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So as for myself, I grew up Catholic. I spent, well, into my college years, I remained a firm believer in the Catholic faith. I started to wonder a little about some things as I aged. Ended up getting married in the Catholic Church, and our first child was baptized in the Catholic Church, but our second wasn't. So somewhere in between there, I ended up, deciding that I didn't really hold that faith anymore. And so I kind of moved on. I was kind of in the, I don't know if you've heard of Pascal's Wager.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was kind of living in that mode for like 10 years or something. And then finally, I think it was in the end of 2014 or so, I decided that I just didn't believe anymore. So I'm now a non-believer, but I'm kind of a truth seeker. I like to go and talk to people about their beliefs. I want to figure out what is really true. And so that's kind of why I go out and that's why I'm setting up this channel. That's why I'm trying to, get out there a little more and understand beliefs a little better. So
that's fantastic. Good for you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I guess one of the big things that I'm not too sure of with LDS is how different it is from Christianity. Like, how do you know of some very specific differences that we could talk about with the two religions?
For sure. Now, not to get caught up in semantics, but we believe we're Christian as well.
Oh, sure.
So I mean,
it's just I see. It's
so
just kind of another sect of Christianity or another.
That's right. Yeah, and not to argue over semantics, but like I said, we so like in terms of morality, how are we different, or
no? In this case, I'm just in general stuff. Like I think we can get into the morality talk in a couple of minutes. I just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork a little bit more, so just so I understand, because I haven't read the Book of Mormon, so I'm I'm a little behind on that.
That's okay. I'll get you a copy, no problem.
Cool.
We believe that when Jesus Christ was on the earth, he established a church, right? Mm-hmm. Most people believe that. Maybe not brick and mortars, but he called apostles. He established, some followers and stuff. We believe, though, that when the apostles died, then in the scriptures it says, grievous wolves will enter in among you, not sparing the flock. We believe that his church fell off the earth, and the world entered into what we call the great apostasy. So there were faithful followers who did the best they can. We believe that's the Catholic Church. That we're grateful they kept the Bible around, and they kept a lot of the teachings around. But when Jesus was on the earth, he laid his hands on his apostles' head, and he gave them what we would term the priesthood, or the authority to act in the name of God or to baptize. But we don't believe the apostles passed this on. That kind of ended, maybe 100 AD or very shortly after the death of Christ, kind of thing. Maybe after Paul or Saul. Paul after. And so for a while there were well-intentioned men on the earth who taught and did good things. And then the Protestant teachers came along, so Martin Luther and John Calvin, and they saw things they didn't agree with in the Catholic Church, so they reformed what they had been taught. And people who came out with the Bible, Gutenberg, and these people were fantastic, good people who helped to make religion more open and more accessible for everybody. But none of these men claimed to be prophets. I think they're just like you are, Carson, where you said, there's truth out there. I don't know what it is. What I had before wasn't it. So I'm going to see, what I'd like to do. Right. So for example, baptism by immersion, right? So the Baptists said, well, sprinkling with water, we don't see that in the Bible, but we do see they went to a river and went all the way under and all the way back. So we're going to do that. Right. And so these were very good men who were very well intentioned, but none claimed to have authority from God, just like you don't, right? But they were seekers of the truth. So in the 1800s, there's a young boy by the name of Joseph Smith. You probably heard of him before. And he wasn't sure what church was true. So he looked in James, and it says, if any of ye lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally, it upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. So he said, well, I don't know which church I should go to. And so he prayed, and we believe in his own words, he said, I saw a pillar of light exactly over my head above the brightness of the sun, which descended gradually until it fell upon me. When the light rested upon me, I saw two personages whose brightness and glory defy all description standing above me in the air. And so we believe that Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ appeared to him, just like Moses in the burning bush, or Jehovah in the burning bush appeared to Moses and said, Joseph, the churches on the earth have taught good things, but they haven't claimed to have authority. And we'd like to restore Christ's church back on the earth.
Okay.
So in other words, it would be like the other churches had a glass globe and it shattered. And different people picked up different pieces, but it's pretty hard to restore or bring it all back together. And that's what we believe Joseph Smith did, is God gave him a brand new orb and said, here's the truth, and I'd like you to start up a church.
Okay.
So that's kind of the foundation of where the LDS church came from.
Okay.
Had you heard that before?
Not all of the details. No, I'm familiar with some of them, but that was probably more than what I was aware of. So, yeah,
Sure.
Thank you for that. That's good.
Would you like to learn about the Book of Mormon?
Yeah, actually, how about let's.
That's related, but we can talk whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into the morality topic for now, and then I think if we want to have another chat at another time, or if we have time after we're done that, then I'm totally down.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
That. Sweet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So I think to get down to the nitty gritty of morality.
Yeah.
One thing that I've found in past discussions about the deeper topics is sometimes people will talk past each other if they don't have the same understanding of word usage.
That's right. Yeah.
So. The first thing I really wanted to get into was the definitions of morality and good and bad. So let's start with good, because how would you define what a good action is?
That's a hard question. And that's why I've delayed our conversation. Okay. Not that I didn't want to talk to you, but that's and I've asked some friends and I said, so pretend I'm an atheist and tell me what good is. And they had a hard time doing it, right? So I may not be very good at it.
Oh, that's good.
But when Jesus was on the earth, he said that, the commandments are to love your neighbor as yourself and to love and serve God. Right. And so I would say that if you love your neighbor as yourself, I don't think anybody would disagree that that's good. That would probably be the broadest definition that I could think of, is that, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah.
I would say that
I like that one.
The golden rule, that if you do that, or in social media where we, correspond, it's hard to be polite all the time. But I've tried to, I've never met you before, Carson.
Right.
But if you were my brother and I disagreed with you, I would try to keep the tone similar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to break any family bonds or friendship bonds because I was snarky or rude or disagreeable.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if I'm always do that, because it gets emotional. It's hard.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the rule that we should try to live by. And if we did, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement on that. So I guess since we kind of feel very similar way, I also like to live by the golden rule, and maybe it's for different reasons than you do, and that might be where we should go with this. Do you find that that you value the golden rule because it's something that Jesus said, or do you value it because it actually makes sense?
Can I say A and B?
Sure.
Can I say both?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Because I don't believe in just blind faith, or in other words, just doing something because somebody told you to do it. But Jesus said, if any man will try his word, he will know of the doctrine. In other words, if you don't believe something, then try it out, and then you're like, well, this makes sense, and you were right.
Right.
Now, where it gets kind of fuzzy and where I was having a hard time with this is God has given us commandments. And I believe that the commandments are there to make us happy and to help the world to be peaceful, right? And where it gets tricky is, you can look at thou shalt not kill or commit adultery. I'm talking about kill, I guess. It's pretty obvious you don't believe in killing people, and I don't believe in killing people. Yeah. But where it gets tricky is war and defending yourself. And Latter-day Saints go to war.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anything against that.
Yeah.
As long as it's, the cause is good and so forth.
Right. Yeah.
But there are some basic things like, we believe that, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's one of the 10 commandments. And
right.
You and I would probably also agree with that,
yep.
If you commit adultery, your wife probably wouldn't be very happy with you.
Right.
And
so the consequences to those actions that, we could also use as a measuring tool rather than having to depend on the 10 commandments, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
If you, I guess, yeah. So if you want to continue, I guess there were probably some others.
No, I mean, I think you are on the same path, is that if it will harm yourself or harm others, that's a bad thing to do.
Right. So that's that's the other definition I wanted to talk about, was the what is bad. And, this kind of covers that already. We're on the same page, I think, with that as well.
Yeah. From an LDS perspective, then Joseph Smith, one of the commandments he gave was we shouldn't drink alcohol.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, or smoke. And so that's where you'd say, well, Jesus drunk wine, and what does a glass of wine do at Christmas time, and things like that. But we've chosen to completely abstain. And we're pretty good at it. Yeah. I'd say you don't get active Mormons or people who go to church every week that drink alcohol.
Right.
That's something we're pretty good at following.
That's interesting, because I'm on the same page. I don't drink and I don't smoke. So.
Oh, that's great.
I have the odd sip of wine here or there. But I really don't go out of my way to do any alcohol drinking. So. Well, so yeah, I'm already kind of on that path with you. So.
and I think the reason for it, now this is where it gets tricky, and this is where people get sticky, is that we believe God gives commandments, but he doesn't always say why, right? He just says, here's what you should do, and then we got to figure it out on our own. But Spencer's reasoning, if you were to ask me why Mormons don't drink, is if you took 100 people and said, well, you can drink moderately, I don't think, you might get 50 to do moderately, but you might have 10 that turn into alcoholics and 5 that end up drunk drivers, or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. It's a matter of statistics. And I'm kind of a foodie. I love trying new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And people have said, if you were a Mormon, would you drink? I said, absolutely, I would. I'd love to see what the flavors are. But I'm worried about the potential harm it would do, and I think the harm would outweigh the good.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I choose not to drink.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who down the road, who's a Mormon as well. But he converted to Mormonism when he was mid 20s, early 30s, and he was an alcoholic before that.
Oh, okay.
And he said, I'm only one drink away from being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I could be too. I have no idea. And so I just choose to stay away, and that's why I think we abstain completely.
Right.
I'd say that people like you, Carson, are rare where you've recognized that it does harm. Maybe it's a taste thing. I don't know.
No, for me, it's because I saw the harm it caused in my family members. I do have a lot of relatives who are alcoholics, and that has affected my life. It affected my life in my youth a little bit. It wasn't like I didn't live in an abusive home or anything like that, but it was, the not direct, or like not my immediate family, but close enough that I actually saw the effects of it. And that really influenced where I came to the conclusion that I just really didn't want to get into it.
Yeah.
And so I've just kind of abstained from it for my whole life. So
sure.
Yeah, so that's been pretty positive, but
good.
Yeah. Was there more you wanted to say about that, or?
No, just that, yeah, that's, if you break it down to its simplest levels, I think that's why we don't, and the money you could save too.
Oh yeah. That was actually a big thing for me too. It's just the practicality of it.
My day job, I'm a financial advisor, so I help people with their management, and I don't tell them stop drinking and save for retirement instead. But if they did, I think a lot of people would be okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. But people make whatever choice they want to make. So
yeah, for sure. Okay. So yeah, I guess one of the things that we had talked about in private chats before this, was that you felt morality comes from God, and I was just wondering how you would explain, how you relate kind of the definitions of good and bad that we've gone over with God, how God would run morality. You know what I mean?
Sure. So I believe that God has given to all of us, we call it the light of Christ, or you could call it a conscience, or Jiminy Cricket.
Right. Okay.
But in other words, he's kind of given us this ability inside ourselves to know what's right and what's wrong.
Oh, okay.
And I think that when you ignore it enough times, it goes away. Like if you cheated on your wife the first time, you'd feel pretty bad.
Right.
But if it became a habit over the years, you wouldn't even think about it after a while, right?
Yeah.
And so, we believe that God has given us this gift to be able to know what's right and wrong, and the seekers of truth. And if you follow your conscience and follow your heart, you'll be able to do it.
Okay.
But does that kind of make sense? Is that kind of where you're going?
I think I know where you're going with that. So I guess if we were to, how should I put this? If we could determine that our concept of what's good and bad comes from something other than a God, would that affect your how you believe in morality? Would that change your position on it?
That's a good question. I don't know if it would or not, because then somebody could say, well, God put that in every human soul, and that was something we were born with, and He created us this way.
I see.
Would that be a logical?
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from with that one as well. So I guess one thing that I've been kind of since I ended up becoming a non-believer toward the end of the, like, about 3 years, I think, just over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the things that I got way more into was learning more about evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's one thing, like, when I was growing up, my parents tried to tell me it was really just a theory. It wasn't something that, it probably didn't happen because God created us as we are, all this other stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've gained quite a bit of interest in learning about that stuff because I was kind of deprived of it when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so now when I think about things like why we have a tendency to avoid murdering, for example,
Mm-hmm.
That can easily be, that particular evil thing can be explained by evolution, because if a species were to not have that mechanism in their brain that avoided murder,
yeah,
they wouldn't survive, right? The species would not survive, so they wouldn't continue on. So quite a ways back in our evolutionary history, I would say that one of our ancestors early on had this tendency to not kill its own kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so would you say that maybe at that point in our evolutionary history, God went and put that in there? Or do you think what is your stance on evolution? I guess that might be a better question, because I don't want to jump to any conclusions on that.
No, fair enough. I mean, as Latter-day Saints, we would follow the traditional biblical, or Adam and Eve and so forth. To say we don't believe in adaptation, we believe in science as far as adaptation goes, for sure. Darwin's, what were they, moths or something like that, and
Darwin's natural selection, or theory of evolution by natural selection, was really the big step that biology took. So
I don't want you to think you stumped me on a hard question, because I'd like to engage with you more, but I have a crying baby on my way. I don't know if you heard her say.
I did hear something, yeah.
So,
do you have to take off then?
So I better let you go, but
okay.
I'd certainly be open to continuing this conversation some other time, but
sounds great.
We got a flu going through our house.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah, well, send me a
natural
message.
Evolution, but
send me a message and we'll hook another one up.
I'll leave you with a joke, though.
Sure.
You know what you get when you mix an agnostic, dyslexic, insomniac?
No. What?
Someone who lies awake at night wondering if there's really a dog. Have a good day, Carson.
All right. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.